Hey, welcome back to Chris's Comments. It is Friday, September 9th, 2022. A while back, I don't know why I'm so cheery. I always work Fridays. Yeah, I did a while back a segment on quiet quitting, and I was using a report based off of one reporter that got it right, okay? Her name is Soumya Krishnamurthy, okay? Soumya Krishnamurthy was really the only person that did her studying, okay? Everybody else just sort of spat on it and speculated based off of what it was. And of course, all the critics said it's bad. They don't, without even knowing what the hell it was. Quiet Kid. Now, Soumya Krishnamurthy has come out with another one concerning quiet quitting, but it's entitled, "Forget Quiet Quitting, You Should Be More Worried About Quiet Firing." And she's got a real good point to make and stuff. It's even her testimony, which I'll talk about a little bit, but I want to stick to mostly what the facts are and on the subject matter. But I strongly recommend everybody read this article. Again, forget quiet quitting. You should be more worried about quiet firing. This is a very important part connected to quiet quitting. And I'll tell you my version and why it's actually more important to look at this than quiet quitting itself. Okay, it comes out off of deluxeedition.com, and it was posted on Wednesday, September 7th of this year. So just now that you've got this down, quiet quitting, which means doing your job within the parameters of your job description. Quiet quitting has turned the conversation towards an even more pervasive problem, quiet firing, also known as constructive dismissal. Okay, constructive dismissal refers to when an employer purposefully treats workers badly in order to get them to quit and avoid directly laying them off. That's very important. I'm going to be going into depth with this one. This saves the company on severance, amongst other things. Just trust me on this. And having that awkward and often lengthy termination conversation, which is true. Excuse me, I burped. In companies with unions or stricter contracts, firing without cause can be difficult. So why not let the employee become so miserable that they leave on their own? And that's very key, and I'm going to get to that also. Carrying on with the article, some ways in which an employer can cajole, yeah, that's my Latin roots talking. Some ways in which an employer can cajole a resignation can include making the employee go years without a raise or promotion, removing high-profile or extended-facing responsibilities, or ignoring them for leadership or advancement opportunities. Anyone who has a boss who keeps missing their weekly check-ins should be on alert. Okay, all of those things, any one of those things sounds familiar, you should know that that's part of quiet firing. That's a part of what adds on to making the employee feel so miserable that they might as well just leave. Okay, now back to the article. Sorry about that. Aside from losing a job, quiet firing leaves the employee feeling confused and frustrated, and even questioning their sanity. Like, am I imagining this? Did I do something wrong? There's no closure. It's like dating someone who does the slow fade away instead of being mature and having the breakup talk. If an employee is a poor performer, by all means, they should be put on alert or terminated. Management should be able to manage people. Now it goes on with this little humor talk concerning Office Space, a movie where this guy who was not receiving a paycheck, but he wasn't told that he was fired, so he kept coming to work and complaining about a staple and that it got taken and not having his cake, until one day he finally loses it and burns the place down and takes off and all this stuff, and he leaves. And that's a very glorious way of treating these companies that mistreat their employees in such an awful manner. Unfortunately, and now Miss Krishnamurthy, she actually brings up the point that in reality, you can't leave so glamorously or victoriously. You're usually left with this sort of frustrated, confused, and sometimes even questioning your sanity, because of the way you've been treated, and leading to you having to walk out feeling that you can't deal with this anymore. And that's if you're not let go or just plain fired. Okay. And her biggest suggestion is to, if you have to leave and stuff, try to find a way to get out as soon as possible. If you come through any of these symptoms, these working for long times without the raise or the proper promotion, or the high profile and responsibilities, or the extential facing responsibilities, or being ignored for leadership or advancement opportunities. You see any of these signs, start going back to reworking your portfolio and go back to look for another employment opportunity, so to say, and ditch that place while you still got your stapler. And it's very cute the way she says that. I love it. It's really humorous, and it's it kind of leaves you with sort of a spiritual uplift. I highly recommend everybody reads this. Again, the title, it's through deluxeedition.com. Forget quiet quitting. You should be more worried about quiet firing. Okay, that's the article. Soumya Krishnamurthy is the writer. I gotta give props. I'm not a fan. I don't really know her very well. I don't know her works very well. I just know she's been catching my attention lately. So somewhere down the line, I'm going to be going through her articles and all that. Maybe even subscribe. I do that with Dollar More Daily. I do that with Brian Tyler Cohen. Sorry about that. And Bo with the Fifth Column. They're all really great reporters and great commentators and all that. This lady's caught my attention now, and so who knows? But for right now, this particular subject is spot on. Here's where it lacks. Okay, not so much that she's off target. She's just not covering all bases. At least not the way somebody like myself does. Somebody that's now she's actually been through a little bit of this. She has experience, so don't discard her. She's had experience through the entertainment industry. And as we all know, through the entertainment industry, a lot of brown nosers can get the job, while those that actually work hard are neglected. She's got a testimony. I highly recommend you read this article. Let's see here. Let's get to the first note. Construction dismissal, which is the professional way of saying quiet firing, refers to when an employer purposely treats workers badly in order to get them to quit. With my knowledge of it, my knowledge doesn't matter. Mine's a different time at a different age before something like this rideshare. But speaking of rideshare, I've got requesters that have quit. They've quit the same day on the very same day that they jump into my vehicle. And they give this testimony. They're upset, and they're pouring heart out or whatever, and I give them, it's okay. What happens in the Uber car stays in the Uber car. If you want to give me your testimonial, preach it, homie. And the man or the woman will tell, the boss is a douche. The people on his side or whom he favors are treating him like douches, are treating him like a piece of crap. They're being just as much of a douche as the boss or the business owner or the business manager or supervisor or whatever, whoever's in charge. Okay. And they're making things impossible and intolerable and all this good stuff. It's all true. It's all true. It's all true. Everybody that jumps in here is saying this crap. Now, in my days, back in the 90s, when I was in my 20s, I also used to jump and quit jobs left and right. I bounced around from job to job. And it wasn't because of bosses like this, but because at the time I also had kind of a temper, and I would walk out on something that made me feel dumb when I should have just stopped, take a step back, and looked at things. Anybody that pissed me off, I would give them the middle finger, and take off. And anytime that I looked bad for it, I wouldn't give a damn. There were times where my temper would show, and I was looked at and I would probably say something borderline concerning, and I would get the dismissal, But somebody like me at the time didn't care. I didn't give a rat's ass. And back in the 1990s, when there were plenty of jobs to go around, there was a period of time where I didn't want to stay in a job. I wanted to stay with a temp agency because I didn't want to stay in one place. I wanted to keep moving from job to job, developing this skill, that skill, learn this trade, learn that trade. I thought that was the coolest way to live. Okay? But not everybody out here, especially in this day and age, especially with these harsh economic times, especially with these surprises of viruses, natural or man-made, all the way up to these price gouges and wars that affect the economy and everything that makes this congestive web of depressed crap. These days, all those things are a huge concern, which leads to it's best to stay in one place and play it safe. Okay, as opposed to the 90s when I was just bouncing around from job to job, going nowhere fast and being thrilled to death about it. Okay, huge difference between the time periods. Okay, and here's the thing, it's kind of like looking at people that don't give a rat's behind it, that have been placed in charge, but it's not. Let's just be perfectly clear about that. They care about what they're doing immensely, and I'm going to get to why. And it starts with this part in the article, Miss Krishnamurthy, who says this saves the company on severance, okay, and having the awkward and awfully lengthy termination conversation, having to avoid it, okay, saves the company some severance. It's more than that, okay. The profit on invested money that's supposed to go to the employees, they get to keep that, especially when the worker walks. You understand? When the worker walks by law, and I can't say this throughout the entire throughout the nation. I can't say this here in Texas, in this right to work state. Okay, by law, that company gets to keep whatever money that's invested into that employee, and gets to keep it, as opposed to paying severance pay, which is what most states, especially those with unions and certain stricter contracts, as she says in the article, most of them will have to pay. If somebody walks, whatever's left there has to be given as a last check, and the company gets to dust their hands off of them. Places like here in this state, you walk, they get to dust their hands first and then collect whatever it was that was supposed to go to that employee. It's all about the money, okay? Belief is the tool. It's all about the money, and you are all led to believe it's just business. Okay. The unions and all that stricter company, how to get firing without cause can be difficult. It's not that difficult here in Texas because, again, it's a right to work state. You don't like what's going on, you have the right to go find another opportunity of employment. Okay, you have the right to walk out. The business people here can smile while you leave. They could still grin and enjoy their day. Okay. In the past, in the 90s, when it was somebody like me, doing it. I'm sure some smiled. I'm sure some went, thank God this guy's gone. But some businesses frowned, and they didn't really like that, you know. So that kind of reward, that kind of keeping the money that's supposed to go to me after a certain amount of time of working for them, you know, they got to keep. And that was sort of like their pick-me-up or something. These days, it's intentionally bad for people to persuade them to work, but it's caused by those people that are running the shows, they're running the businesses, and they're sort of forcing them to make the decision to walk. And again, at the worst time, when you got all these economic problems going on, trickling all the way down to the common worker, this couldn't be happening at the worst time. But that's the reason why quiet quitting and quiet firing are now being noticed. Okay, 20 years ago, it wouldn't have been noticed. It would have just been business, and these guys and this Chris Garcia with all these other people are just douchebags, that want to bounce around and all this stuff because they think that's the life to live. And it was true. Sometimes I was a hot-tempered douchebag. Other times it was a them versus me because the workers had their own clique or whatever. And other times it was just a boring job that I was not interested in, so I would quietly quit. And then I would walk, But it was the life that I chose. I loved, particularly once I found temporary employment agencies, I bounced around from them left and right, and I was loving it. I loved traveling. I loved working different things to do, and I loved getting paid for it. And I loved that none of it was a ball and chain. None of it was like being married. I wasn't getting married to a company, so to say. I loved it, and I really don't want to see it again. It was a different time. Going back to this article with my review, aside from losing the job, the quiet firing leaves employees confused, frustrated. Okay, what's just as bad is that these things can lead to abuses. Okay, this is a concern. I'm a victim of this myself. I don't want to get into it, but I am a victim of this myself, as are many of you who are listening, for a friend who's just now finally understanding what this roommate, relative, whoever is trying to tell you. Okay, if the worker stays, the longer the worker stays, the more abusive the treatment gets. And again, making people feel so miserable, making the workers feel so miserable comes a long way. Again, these neglect for leadership and advancement opportunities, removing high profile opportunities or extended facing opportunities, something that keeps you going, to maintain this wonderful stable flow of income, to tough out these high costs of living and all this stuff, to make it more manageable. These raises that you're supposed to get after a certain amount of time, or an actual promotion, after a certain amount of time. All of those things are just basics. Then comes the rudeness and the mistreatments and why don't you know this? Some people haven't been trained to do this stuff. They're just told to work it. And when they mess up, what the hell's the matter with you? And it's all minuscule stuff. And it's mostly out of fast food and retail shops. I won't lie. It's not everywhere. It does exist to certain extents, to certain degrees, I should say, in every corporation and business, as well as small business and shops. That is true, though. That is true. Okay. But the longer that employee stays there with that company, the more this type of abuse goes on. Okay. Now, some fields, it's slightly to be expected. The electrical field, for one. Okay. I was in the electrical field for a small while before a leg injury, stumbling down some stairs and blowing out my kneecap. I think I've revealed this in one of my previous posts in my first year doing this podcast. but it was in the name of safety, because we are talking about volts and wattage and all this good stuff. You need the correct connections. You need the correct, not just cables. Those are already set, but you need to get out of all the variety of connectors and clamps and all this other crap that you're supposed to connect those cables to. Otherwise, you could send some kind of discharge of electricity, and you can kill somebody. In the name of safety, you were yelled at quite a bit. If you got something wrong, you would get the "what are you, stupid" or something. You would get that kind of treatment if you messed up. Now, I personally didn't always get that. I did in the beginning, but as I worked through it all, I wound up making myself a whole lot more reliable. And it was the training that helped. And there's a lot of people with these days that are not giving them the training that they're supposed to get. Pipe bending. There is some certain pipe bending is easy when you're doing 1-inch conduit. Okay. When you're doing the kind that's made for the power to transfer, like I'm underneath a highway, and if you're doing pipe bending with 4-inch to 6-inch diameter pipes, you use a machine, and if you don't, you have this big giant pipe bender, which is basically this curve clump of metal, and to a certain degree that you with a degree scale on it, to where once you hit it at that part where you on the degree scale, that's where you can bend the pipe. But you have to use all of your might, and you have to your body weight and everything, and you have to do it without putting kinks to the pipe. Okay? And if you're not that smooth enough, you're gonna get yelled at. It can't have kinks. It can't have something where there's a point to where once that cable gets sent through the pipe, it's going to scrape, scratch, possibly crack, if not tear into the cable. Safety. Okay? That's the safety concern. So that kind of stuff, you kind of get used to it, and you tough it out, and you master the thing as fast as you can, as well as you can, and you remember how it goes and all this good stuff. It's not necessary in a retail store or a fast food joint. It's not supposed to be. That's just dumb. Their safety measures are entirely different. It's food handling, which is packaging and all this stuff, and wearing your gloves. But none of that requires somebody to say, "What are you, fucking stupid or something? You're gonna kill everybody." No. It doesn't belong there. Huge difference between the two. And I think I just dropped the F-bomb. I do apologize for that. Sorry. I try to mind my manners when I'm doing this on the YouTube version. On the audio only podcast, I get to curse as much as I want. If an employee is a poor performer, by all means, they should be put on alert or terminated. Now, the key word being if. Okay? A lot of these companies are throwing a lot of crap on an employee. And a lot of that hits the nerves, and it gets the person uneasy or uncomfortable, and that employee can screw up, sometimes to a level of safety, screw up on a safety issue, and that is wrong. These businesses can't be doing that kind of stuff with their employees. So if the person is unqualified or messes up or whatever, yeah, by all means fire them. However, this shouldn't be a surprise if there's a lawsuit against these companies or fast food chains or retail places for their part in enactments of danger. Okay? Them treating the employees bad is what leads to mistakes, sometimes dangerous ones. Okay? And that leads me to quiet quitting is derived from quiet firing. Okay? that office space humor has been real for a very long time, especially here in Texas, the right to work state. You know, if these people weren't treated uncomfortable, lied to, mistreated, used, abused, and enhanced ongoing abuses, the more that worker tries to stay to keep this job. Okay? Because the more power that employees have over making, the more they get away with hurting that employee, making them feel so miserable, usually the more it extends to where that employee, endangers themselves, as well as does something wrong for other customers or something. It's quite possible that has a domino effect leading to the customers and all this stuff. And it's wrong, and it needs to be addressed immensely. Okay. But all these experts that are saying quiet quitting is bad because you're not going above and beyond and all this stuff, you're just shortchanging yourself and you're making yourself unworthy and all this garbage. That's exactly what it is. It's just plain garbage. Okay? Overworking gets you so far. It's a lot of those with a few years of mental health that really take a backseat to productivity. That's all true. But yeah, that's what I meant to say. It takes it puts mental health and all that into the backseat, and it just really doesn't help at all. Quiet quitting is derived from quiet firing. Okay? Everybody you wouldn't be having people reducing themselves to the bare minimum of responsibilities if you weren't being treated like crap. If there was an actual opportunity for going above and beyond, you wouldn't have quiet quitting. You'd have people going above and beyond for their duties. Excuse me for a second, sorry. It's still hot down here in Texas. I'm sorry. Quiet firing has intensified immensely once the demand of minimum wage increase up to $15 an hour became a thing. That's not anybody's reporting. This is my statement. It's what I've noticed ever since the strikes with McDonald's and the demand for $15 and up. When the workers wanted something that was minimum wage as opposed to below minimum wage, all the hype came up that everybody's going to be lazy as opposed to actually getting $15 an hour. Back then, it was $10.10, I think. That's minimum wage. Dude, working for those extra dollars and getting rewarded for it is not going to make people lazy. But for some oddball reason, every single manager and business owner said that, and I could speculate that it's because of the little money that they're paying makes the bigger money that they get helps them enjoy relaxation and vacations a lot easier. So for them to see their employees wanting to make more bucks, they're going to assume, I guess, that they're going to immediately go out on a lot of vacations and all this other crap, like the way they're doing. I've been to business. I'm not going to mention any names, but I've been to businesses where certain numbers of management had their truck, their F-250 with a trailer and jet skis on that trailer and kayaks on top of the truck, okay? And all this camping gear and whatever strapped down with a grill strapped down in the bed of the truck, okay? I've been to some businesses where these managers and supervisors, almost everything except for a team leader was vacationing like this on a weekend getaway. There'd be RVs in the parking lot, okay? So this whole bizwax where we, the workers, wouldn't mind a $15 minimum wage thing so we can enjoy our weekends Maybe not to the extent of kayaks and jet skis, but who knows? We might get a hookup one day. But and speaking of that, that's the mentality of the worker. We might get that hookup one day, as opposed to saying, I want to be paid $1 billion, so I can go enjoy my jet skis, because I want to buy jet skis. Nobody's making that kind of ridiculous assumption. We're all still thinking along the lines of the typical American worker, which is, if we're lucky, we can do that. If we can schedule the amount of payments, if we can get in a good amount of low payments, we'll go for it. That's the mentality of the worker. But we wanted and I say we because at the time I was working an hourly wage job. We all wanted that $15 an hour minimum wage, and every higher up went straight to the media saying they all want to be lazy bitches. They all want to slack off. Workers today, man, they're just so ungrateful. And it started with that, and it intensified. It even intensified more so once President Biden came into office and had this dire need to make companies and corporations pay their fair share of taxes, which is not unreasonable. We need them to pay their fair share of taxes no differently than any of us. There are too many loopholes and ways to get around and all that stuff. And before anybody out there thinks, well, they are paying their fair share of taxes. No, they're not. There might be some kind of tax the state collects through some certain clause. That's the word. Through some certain clause. But if you honestly believe that these CEOs and these managers and all this stuff are paying the same amount of taxes the way that we're paying them, oh, hell no. I got oceanified property in Arizona I could sell you cheap. Just sign the check. Just sign a blank check. I'll fill out the rest, Once Biden came up with his corporation thing, the problems got worse, okay? When quiet firing became so problematic was after the out and opening fire and job layoffs of employees during the pandemic, okay? Once the pandemic hit, that was the excuse for every business to start laying off everybody, not paying the minimum wage, but putting up signs saying now hiring up to $14 per hour. Okay? You started catching those little key words on those billboards, on their signs. Now hiring and all this stuff. And then to top it all off, they did this even despite the fact that America went through a somewhat herd immunity once vaccinations started to become available. The majority of the businesses that caused these problems for employees stood the ground and started to go to the media saying nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to work. I'm hiring. Nobody wants to work. Again, up to $14 an hour. The minimum wage requirement is $15 on a national average. In some places, it needs to be up as high as $21. In some areas, it only needs to be up as $17. But for the most part, $15 is a-okay to get by in the high cost of living that we've got. And the gas prices is another one also. It's another example. They're out there hiring and firing clerks, while at the same time price gouging all of us. And then going up to the media saying nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to work. Quiet firing allows business to continue making these claims. Quiet firing, this thing where they're making it miserable for employees, that employees can't take it anymore, that they got to leave. Okay? Quiet firing allows businesses to continue. Quiet firing is where quiet quitting comes from. And that's the thing that I'm stating. So far, no reporter, not even Krishnamurthy, she's not tackling that yet. And that's fine. This is just still out in the open. This is a babbling bunch of crap that I've been stating since the time that I started, even before I started the podcast. I've been always quoting. You can quote me saying these things, for the longest time. If you knew me up until now, should you go to the very beginning where I'm talking about the BS, minimum wage BS, and why businesses can't raise the bar. Why businesses can't raise the wages, but up until recently, now that everybody in society knows what quiet quitting is and how it's coming from quiet firing, and now that everybody's starting to quit, and it's still a slow process. Throughout this past couple of months, everybody's been getting it all wrong, saying that quiet quitting is about ditching the job quietly and fading away, hiding behind something and walking out the door. It's ridiculous, and everybody's saying that it's a morale depletion, and that it's all this and it's all that, and it's hurting the economy, and it's all derived for all the liberals and the communists and the socialists and everything. Everybody has gotten it wrong this entire time. Okay? Everybody has gotten it wrong. It means do your job within the perimeters of your job description, and that's it. To go above and beyond is not an incentive anymore, because there's no reward for it. There's no award for it. There's no purpose in it. You're not getting treated. You're not getting paid more. You're not getting this or that. The promotions and the raises and or any bonus checks, for crying out loud. You're not getting any of that. So you work quiet quitting level, where you stop right at where your job description says this is all you do. That's what quiet quitting is. Every single reporter, with the exception of Miss Christemerth, I'm starting to get her name right a little bit. Kirstenmerth. Every single reporter has gotten it wrong. Every single expert has gotten it wrong. Every single commentator has gotten it wrong. None of them know what you and I go through. This bizwax, where we only handle what our job requirements ask us to handle. Okay? Anything going above and beyond, we need that pay. We need that promotion. We need the pay that goes with the promotion. And we need to be rewarded for this. If this brings so much profit that this business can pay the taxes or go through the loopholes and keep the money, the bonus checks should be handed out. Okay? That's the benefit of going beyond and above and beyond. Okay? To enslave yourself and stress yourself out, taking care of extra duties, to where the only thing you're spending your paycheck on is not just on the cost of living, but antidepressants and crap like that. No, hell no. Go to quiet quitting levels and make sure that you're not going through all of this crap, which eventually leads to abuses. The longer you stay, the more abusive these people become. It's just that simple. Quiet quitting is derived from the quiet firing. And what's the point of quiet firing? Well, remember, as the article says, as the reporter Krishnamurthy, as she stated, she says this saves the company on severance. And this is also what I'm saying about the profits that go to the invested money. Whenever you get a raise or a promotion, you're working for that. And that's coming out of the profits from the businesses. They're supposed to take that portion and reward you with that. But they don't. And this is where we come with what I like to say, it's all about the money. Belief is a tool. First, the money. For average cost of a new hire, it costs the company about $4,700, more or less. Not everybody's like that. Some businesses will require more based on the type of performances needed. Okay, others that are more simplified can cost as low as, I think, $4,200. I didn't get a chance to write that part down. I do apologize. Some businesses can take up to 6 months for a company to make up the money it spent on a new hire. Okay, some businesses, yeah, $4,700 for that new hire, and it'll take about 6 months of profit to make up that very same $4,700. Okay, other companies, and particularly corporations, it's actually a lot sooner because the big money that they're making. Okay. The majority of companies use reference checks on employers, like screening methods, in-person screenings, behavioral interviews, to assess that applicant. Okay, those are helpful tools for the employer to perform quiet firing on the employee. Okay, now granted, that's just my opinion. I still can't find the physical evidence of that. You know, I'm going through researchers and stuff like that, but I'm currently going through information based off of asset turnover ratio and profit margins. Okay, I'm looking at who's benefiting, and in what way, through profits or investments in stocks and all that, and then I'm looking at their rates of turnovers. Okay, and those are the big clue. Those are the big clues. And I got that idea from the oil companies. Okay, the oil companies that are currently bitching to President Biden, saying we need that pipeline open because we can't reopen refineries. We really don't see a reason for it. We need to reopen the pipeline because we don't see any reason to not drill offshore. You're not letting us drill offshores. You know, all this crap. Technically, the oil and fuel industry does not need the pipeline. They don't need to drill offshores. Especially lately in Louisiana, I think it was. Louisiana, a judge said, no, you're not going to be drilling off of our shores because you're not meeting safety guidelines. Obviously, Louisiana remembered the time when a drill busted and leaked miles and miles of oil, large nautical miles that almost reached Florida and messed up our Texas shores. But you got gas and fuel companies, you got oil and fuel companies say, we're not going to reopen the refineries that we shut down in 2020 during the pandemic and go back to rehiring all those jobs that we laid off. We're not doing that unless you give us the pipeline. We don't really see an incentive. And then to top it all off, these guys won't even reopen the pipeline without the money going to it off of our tax-paying dollars. In other words, they're going to Congress and saying, you got to fit the bill. You got to fit the bill. You got to pay us to reopen a structure that we already set up, despite the fact that it loses just a third of its oil every day, 600,000 barrels, and we lose a third of it through cracks and spills. But that's beside the point. You need to pay for this. Okay? Looking at that, and then looking at people like Warren and Porter, who take these companies and banks and all these stockbrokers and all that to court and say, why are you demanding that the country pays you, who says you don't have any incentive to do any business without the government's money, when you're making all this profit? You know, you're rolling in it, so to say. They're rolling in cash, so to say. They're making tons and tons of profit, and all the oil companies and all the banks and all the Wall Street people are saying, "How dare you question my business tactics? It's just business." Which again, it's all about the money. Belief is the tool. They want money at your expense, and they're making you believe it's just business. And that kind of abuse from that level all the way down to us employees who have to deal with businesses that will make $4,700 sometimes as late as 6 months, sometimes around the time of 6 months. they have to make up for, they get their money back sometimes after 6 months, but they punish you while you're working and abuse you while you are working until you get up and leave. And every month, all that money that's supposed to go to you to get their pay raise, to get your promotion, and all this good stuff, or bonus checks, something as simple as that, medical, maybe even a stock option. Some of these department stores, business corporations and stuff. I used to work at a theme park. They gave me a stock option at the time that I was working with them. Now I sold it when I left, but that's beside the point. I was given those things. You should be given those things also. That's the way good business runs. But that's not what you're being told. You're being told nobody wants to work. And everybody that goes there is treated like dog crap until they get up and leave. And while they're saying nobody wants to work, again, they're keeping the profit that was supposed to go to that employee. Even you, if you are one that has actually walked out on a job because of this crap that's being done to you. You shouldn't be confused. You shouldn't be thinking that you were doing something wrong. In their eyes, it's just business. And that's what they're making you believe. It's just business. But in fact, it's not about just business. It's about the money. It's all about the money. Belief is the tool. It's all about the money. They're making you believe it's just business. That's the tool. Again, there's no investigative reports that show this. I'm connecting the dots, okay? Helpful tools for the employer to perform quiet quitting on the employee. It's not revealed. It's only revealed through profit of a turnover. Currently there's no one that's actually revealing that. It's just based off of the asset turnover ratio and profit margins. Okay? It's all based off of asset turnover ratios and profits that are made. You got to connect the dots. Currently, that's the best that I got. And I apologize for that. But I felt the need to throw this part out, especially while we've got such great reporting about quiet quitting, the accurate fact of quiet quitting and the accurate facts of quiet firing. This whole bizwax of making people feel uncomfortable to save companies on severance pays, that's just a small portion. The stats of business failures and turnover rates, the asset turnover ratios, okay, the information provided off of that is what helps you connect these dots. The information providing by the asset turnover ratios and the profit margins that companies are making, you see all the negative that's going on. People walking out. But yet you're looking at the business making more money. It doesn't take that much of a genius. That's coming from me. You're a rideshare driver in Texas with a GED. It's the only certifiable proof of an education. Now, if I could connect these dots, how much can you connect? Some of you out here have an education, well, at least more than what I got, Some of you out there probably have way better research tactics too. I really wish you guys would do that, because so far that I could tell, this is the only one. Samaya Krishnamurthy. That's the only one that's gotten it correct. It's the only one that's gotten it correct. And near as I can tell, it's only to a certain extent that she's gotten it correct. Now, obviously, she needs to have more physical evidence. Saving the company on severance pay, through neglect of leadership and advancement opportunities. All those are all from testimonials of workers that have quit. So she's putting that information to good use. Okay. And it sticks to the quiet firing, quiet quitting subjects. Everybody else is thinking that it's about morale and that it's about dedication or lack of. And everybody's thinking that it's about just grinding your teeth and bearing down and going and still doing, putting up with it and stuff, which I think is the worst freaking expert around. The one that says, quiet quitting is bad. What you need to do is grin and still take it up the ass, which they're not saying literally, but they might as well have. Oh my God. No, it takes hard work. You got to go above and beyond and all this stuff. You need to stick with it. You can't quiet quit. Quiet quit is failure. Well, no, it isn't. And it sure as hell isn't going above and beyond while not getting your pay for it, not getting your rewards for it. You're not getting your rewards for going above and beyond. What you're doing is bending over and taking it up the tailpipe and having to grin about it. Okay? Now, if you like that sort of stuff, hey, good for you. It's a free country, whatever. What the hell? Go for it. But in actuality, nobody wants that. And every expert that says you can't do quiet quitting is wrong. No, quiet quitting is right. You got to keep doing this. You got to keep pushing on. No, what you're asking them is to bend over while the employers keep pushing to their delight. That's what you're asking. You're asking them to push to their delight, all at the employee's expense and dignity, apparently. So, yeah, no. Every expert is just wrong. Okay? Every expert, and I know I can't really etch that in stone because it's September 9th, 2022. Somewhere down the line, they're going to get it. They're going to get it correctly. So this isn't great. But as of right now, as of this date of this recording, yeah, they're wrong. They got it all wrong. Especially the ones, I forgot who it was. There was a CEO of a company. She was telling everybody to grin and bear it. There was a lady on news internet that said it's real news and all this good stuff. And she wound up saying everything that exec CEO was saying, to where both the CEOs and all of the other experts, they all should have just said, shut up, keep bending over, and keep taking it up the keister. Okay? That's all that they were saying. I mean, they weren't saying it literally, but they might as well have. So for right now, deluxe edition, Samoya Krishnamurthy. The only one so far that's got it right. I should go out and review the newsletters and all that to check to see if there's any more people that have gotten it right. So far, nobody has, and I'm hoping maybe those of you that look into this could actually share with me, because I always post the email and the other podcast, the audio only podcast. If you want to write to there, if you want to write my email, I do apologize. As you can see, this is my office. I don't have a studio. There's no studio to text or write or call or any kind of crap like that. I do apologize, but I do give you my email. If you got information, share it. I'll gladly broadcast it up here. Also, let me know if you want. So far, nobody else is doing it. Everybody's just signing anonymous. Any kind of information that they share with me, which is mostly just rhetoric crap. And so them, I don't really care. If you're saying the same old crap that is the feeds along the rhetoric, you're not really dropping any information. What you're doing is just saying the same old crap. And that I will not address. Screw that. Screw you. I still have tons of them that are doing that. I could mention them. I'm not going to, because it's the same old crap. There's no connecting the dots to make. There's no investigations. There's no articles to read. There's no anything. There's just nothing but somebody saying it's bad, and everybody else saying it's bad. And whenever you write me those, I just, I blow you off. I blow you off. Sometimes you'll get a response back. I'll say stupid, because those comments are dumb. When you're doing just basic rhetoric, it's stupid. When you're not bringing anything to the table, in my eyes, it's stupid. When you're not bringing anything out there for me to actually stop and look and then do the investigation, read that article. Who wrote it? Is it some conservative rhetoric babbling bullcrap person, or is it an actual investigative reporter? That's what I usually do. And that's what leads me to seeing whether or not you're just stating the same old crap and, leading me to say stupid and then, discarding you. I'll block you off of my site, off of my comment section. And don't get me wrong, I expect it. This is Texas, The majority of my state believes this crap. The majority of my state believes quiet quitting isn't about just doing what your job requires you, job description requires you to do. The majority of my state literally believes that it's an attack of morale that pleases Stalin, that makes Hitler smile in hell. The majority of my Texas believes this shit. I don't make this up. I'm not making this up. It's the truth. But yeah, you guys, I have been expecting to see all the negative feedback. And I'm expecting more right after this one. But I can still stand my ground. Because I know what I'm talking about. I actually listen to the testimony of these exact same workers that are quiet quitting all the way up to actual quitting, looking for job opportunity, looking for other employment opportunities because of the bull crap that they have to go through based off of the mistreatments of their employers who are performing quiet firing. And that's the reason why I keep posting these broadcasts. That's the reason why I keep doing this podcast, is because I'm actually listening to these people. I'm noticing what's going on. I can say every expert out there is wrong. They don't know a damn thing about it. They haven't had to go through an hourly wage job in decades, okay? They haven't had to deal with the boss and the bull crap that's going on in this day and age, okay? In my days, in our days, 2 decades ago and back, we had an occasional douchebag of a boss on occasion. But it is nothing like every single business out here that's feeding into the hate and the monger and the abuses and all this crap, to where a rideshare driver is getting people jumping in distraught over the mistreatment that they went through. Okay? This is a whole different time period. And every so-called expert has gotten it wrong. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. They either don't remember the days when they were bad, or they never actually experienced quiet firing. And that's where I put the money on. That's where I place the bet. If I was a Tibetan man, that's where I would place the bet. They just don't know. They don't know what the crap is going on and the crap that everybody's going through. The crap that I deserted once I became a rideshare driver. The reason why I don't want minimum wage job, I don't want this to be a minimum wage job. I like the idea of one starring some douchebag that was being an asshole. I like the idea of having the freedom of doing what I normally do when I get a douchebag. I pull over and I kick him out. I don't want that kind of crap. I don't want to tolerate that. Who the hell wants to? Why in the world would I want to get an hourly wage job that has you tolerating that crap? And if it's not from the customer, that irate customer, that Karen or Chad or just some nut bar, you're having to deal with that with the boss and anybody that the boss favors. Okay? You can't expect people to be tolerating that. And so you can't expect me to tell you, listen to those experts. No, those experts don't know what they're talking about. They don't know about quiet firing. They don't know how it leads to quiet quitting. They only say that it's wrong, it's bad. That's it. That's it. And if they dive a little bit into it, they say you should bear down, you should grin and bear it, which technically is saying you should keep getting bent over, with or without the lube, And now, granted, they're not saying that literally, but they might as well have. They might as well have. They are wrong. They're wrong. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what you're going through. Okay, so I am already past an hour. I can't believe it took a whole hour, but I had to let that out. I have to fill you in on this. I had to share with you my next segment. I'm going right back to Greg Abbott. Big surprise, douchebag. He's done it again. But for right now, and speaking of Greg Abbott, he's one of those same politicians that's throwing campaign ads about working hard. And that's where he comes from. And that's what he wants everybody in Texas to do, to work hard and grin and bear it. Yeah, we know what grin and bear it means. Anyway, again, he's not saying it literally, but he might as well have. This is Chris with Chris's Comments signing out. Y'all take care. Y'all take it easy. Have a good one.